Hello and welcome to Follow Everton. I'm Stevie and I'm joined by my younger brother Basil today as we preview Sunday's tight-end clash between Everton and Chelsea at Goodison Park. It is we've been saying this for weeks, if not months, must win, if not, must not lose match for Everton. So in this show, we're going to be having a look at what we expect the teams to line up as. Obviously, Chelsea have only had a very limited time to prepare for this game. Basil, how do you feel that might be playing into Everton's hands, or do you think it will make no difference given Chelsea's depth of squad?
I think they've obviously only played on Thursday night. That was last night, so the turnaround is quick. So I'm not sure how much time they'll have to assess Everton, but they won't take them long to work out how frail we are. They've got a deep squad. I expect them to make some changes. They can easily just bring in Lukaku or someone of that level of quality and change the team up. So we'll have to see what they do, but I'm sure Matt will have some views on how they'll do that.
Yeah, so this is one of the rare Follow Everton shows where we open up our channel to opposition. Of course, it's something that we dare to do after the match, but before the game, everyone's on good terms. And so we will be joined by Matt, who is an avid Chelsea fan, and he's just been chatting before the show about how he thought Everton were robbed of a penalty as he sat in a neutral section watching. Well, there is no neutral section, but at least watching Everton versus City at Goodison Park. So Basil, let me know when Matt is around, and we'll bring him into the show. I can see him there now. So let's bring him in. Hi, Matt.
Hiya, how's it going?
Yeah, we're good. We're probably not as happy as you are right now, but we're putting on a brave face. Looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting lineup between Tuchel and Lampard. Obviously, you've got the Chelsea connection between Lampard, and also you've got current players that want to prove Lampard wrong. For example, Rudiger, Jorginho, Alonso, all of whom have been frozen out at Chelsea by Lampard. So they'll be up for the fight, up to prove Lampard wrong. And hopefully it'll be a absolute cracker of a match.
Let's hope so. 2:00 kickoff on Sunday, of course. I think it's live on Sky Sports. So Lampard, the big return, you touched on that. It's obviously big for him as well. How much of a factor do you think that might be when he faces Chelsea? Do you think his will to win will be higher, or do you think he'll have a soft spot? I mean, surely he's got to do a job, but what do you make of the fact that he's going to be playing Chelsea for the first time since he left and was sacked as manager?
Obviously, stakes are high for Everton at this point of the season in the relegation zone. So it's a must-win for him. Obviously, he wants to get one over Chelsea for sacking him, prove to the boardroom that he was the man for the job. But Chelsea, on the other hand, have to get that Champions League spot, so they don't want to drop points as well. But then again, you guys have Joe Edwards and Ashley Cole now, so Chelsea inside and out. The weaknesses, their strengths, set plays, probably know everything. So there's no other manager that would know Chelsea better than Lampard.
So do you think that will play in a factor as far as where Everton can exploit Chelsea? Yes, or do you see this as being very similar to the way that Everton approached the Liverpool game, where they just want to stay in the game for as long as possible and see if they can nick a point? Basil, what do you think about Everton's approach to the match on Sunday?
I think it's interesting what Matt said about Joe Edwards, because he's only just left Chelsea 3 months ago. So as he said, he'll know everything they've been planning. Whether they'll come up with something slightly different this week, we'll have to see. But it's an interesting one, and Lampard will, I'm sure, watch every single Chelsea game he's probably a massive Chelsea fan still. So we will know them inside out, but I don't think it makes a huge difference when we're dealing with what we're dealing with in terms of the mentality, the way we're playing. It's really tricky to see that as an advantage. I'm not sure it is, but
yeah, I think in this league, everyone knows each other. They've played each other so many times. Yes, there's some inside knowledge there, but come Sunday when they cross the white line, it's all about whether Everton can pick up much needed points, and Chelsea, obviously, they are going for top four spot. I think that Champions League qualification match is almost all but nailed on for Chelsea. I think that what they're now doing is looking at maybe what sort of side they might put out in the FA Cup final. I may be wrong, but they've gone through, they're going through a busy week. United away, on the back of that draw where Ronaldo scored an absolute cracker at Old Trafford. What sort of feeling do you think fans have got following that draw? Do you think that it's going into Everton game thinking this is going to be an easy win, or do you think this is going to be like actually one of the hardest games of the season given the stakes that are there for the Toffees?
The Goodison Park has always been like a really difficult ground for Chelsea. I remember you guys beating us in the FA Cup a few seasons ago, in the league as well. And it's always been that, like, no matter how in form your team is, like, it's just that ground you go to and you can definitely slip up in. Like, form-wise, Chelsea has lost against United. Drew against United, lost against Arsenal, and then won marginally against West Ham. And then we came off that 3-0 draw. 3-2 win at Real Madrid as well. But then ultimately dropped out of the Champions League. So it's been a roller coaster of a last few games for us. So it's difficult to predict what Chelsea will turn up at Goodison weekend. So one win in the last 4 or 5 games is absolutely dreadful. Yeah. But then again, form-wise, you guys aren't as prolific as you should be. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Every game is now is a bit like a cup final for Everton. Well, that's how I feel about it, and fans are sort of clinging on to the fact that in the 144 years or however it's been, really this is now the last half a dozen of probably the most important games because of the money that comes with the street credibility, the ability to attract players, and although lots of fans have come to terms with the fact that Everton may go down, and it's probably 50-50, and I think a lot of the bookies actually think that Burnley will probably leapfrog Everton by the end. I think there's always that feeling where at home Everton have the crowd and they have that 12th man, and the atmosphere should really contribute towards a good game. It's still quite an early kickoff, but we're expecting a full house. We're expecting a great atmosphere. Lampard's back, but when they cross the line, Everton really have got to try and see if they can get 3 points, Basil, because I don't think that we can be playing for draws at this point, given the fact that Burnley they've had a resurgence of form and a real bounce.
And this isn't a game that we're going to be able to win with quality, really. I don't see it that way. It's just going to be a fight. And, the forwards have got to start taking chances, because it's not as if we haven't created some reasonably clear chances the last couple of weeks, but they just haven't been clinical enough. And the goals have largely come off scraps and the deflections that have gone in. And it doesn't matter how you score, we just got to hope you get a deflection, it goes in, and you can hold on for a 1-0 and play onto the crowd. We won't be able to just sit off like we did at Liverpool. The crowd will get restless and bored. They know that we need to win the game. So, there will be spells where we will be defending in our own box, but there has to be times when we are kind of flying forward and pressing as a unit.
Okay, that's really good insight. So I think we'll come on to our lineups in a second, but first we'll touch on team news. So Everton they do have the option now to bring back Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's returning to the squad. After a couple of matches out with that thigh injury, it wasn't the best of timing, although he's not been on top form. I think he would admit that himself. Yerry Mina's now available. Arguably, before his injury, was Everton's best defender, certainly in centre half, but it was a resolute performance for 60 minutes against Liverpool. So we will see what happens. I mean, before we touch on the Chelsea team news, let's go back to you, Basil, and think about do Calvert-Lewin and Mina come into this side, or do you think that they're going to sit out the game? And how similar a lineup do you think this will be to the one that faced Liverpool at Anfield?
I think Mina will be coming back into the lineup. I mean, from what I've read, is that he's back in the squad. I think he's got to play if he's available. I don't know if you have the team that the graphic that you can overlay, but right. Yeah, so I'll explain. Basically, going for Pickford at goal and then back four, because we play better as a back four. Myelenko, Coleman as full backs, and then Michael Keane and Mina with Keane only with Mina, because I think they can perform well as a duo. I think when Mina's next to Keane, Mina takes the responsibility, and I think Keane can be a backs to the wall defender in a game like this when there's aerial balls flying in and very tight spaces. And you got Allen in front. I mean, it's a toss up with Allen and Delph, and then Doucouré, Iwobi's not really droppable at the moment, and then you've got Gordon and Richarlison out wide. I think Richarlison would be isolated against their three centre backs. I don't know who they'll play. I think Matt will come on to it, but they've got Thiago Silva, Christensen, Rudiger, big, strong, experienced centre backs. I think Richarlison will just go down like a sack of potatoes. So you've got to get DCL back in there. He's half fit and he probably won't run very far, but he can play 60 minutes. He can be a body up there, probably better than Rondon, you would expect, and feed off him and hope you win the second balls. You've got the three in midfield. What's interesting is we'll play probably the 4-3-3, and they will probably play a 3-4-3, and there'll be a lot of space because you look at Wolves came to Everton and managed to get a 1-0 win, and they scrapped and they stretched the pitch. And I think we saw Leicester stretch the pitch, even though they played the back four, but the wing back, their fullbacks were so wide and high that they were able to dominate possession and spread the ball around. And I think with Chelsea playing that formation, they probably will control most of the ball. I'm going to have to be diligent because there will be gaps with the two formations going up against each other.
Yeah, I think, David, your team is very plausible as far as the lineup is concerned. I think there's very good justification in putting Dominic Calvert-Lewin into this game because of the physicality that he brings and the way that Richarlison on the left-hand side is, in my opinion, more effective as a sort of peripheral striker rather than a primary striker, although he's done pretty well. I think if we're going to win this game, it's going to be a 0-0. I think you've got to keep it tight and see if we can nick something at the Gladys Street. We'll move on to Chelsea in just a second, but I think you've definitely raised some valid points about Mina, and it's about defensive partnerships, isn't it, Basil? It's not just about the personnel; it's about what partnerships are there at the back, and there's no good playing the low block for another 90 minutes because I feel that Chelsea will eventually do what Liverpool did and pick us off. But how do you think Everton need to set up to try and manage this game? A lot of fans are quite nervous that we might be 5 points behind Burnley by the end of Sunday, and therefore I think that it's almost that Everton need to play it in a way where they can't lose, but they try and stay in the game to try and see if they can win it.
Is a point good enough for Everton? That's the question, because you think at this stage that they'd be 4 points behind Burnley. Burnley look like they're going to pick up quite a few points at the moment, and I think we need to pick up a lot of points to get out of this mess. Whether we can drag Leeds into it is another question. But in terms of Godfrey's out, so the option of having that bit of pace at the back to mop things up is not there. We don't know who Chelsea play, but if they play Werner, the pace is going to be running straight through us, and we don't have Godfrey to match it up. I just don't think they'll play Werner. I have a sneaky feeling that even though he's been out of sorts and on the side, they might throw Lukaku in because he's up against his old team. They need to freshen up their team, and I think he'd score against, he'd just bully Keane. So I don't know, but I think
we could do with Lukaku back at Everton right now. I think there would be loads of fans that would snap their hands off at Romelu to come back, and really they've not replaced him since he left. But he's been a bit out of sorts, Matt, in terms of the Chelsea squad, and there's been a bit of a riff-raff with selection and some stalking in the corner. And what do you make of all that?
So he came in.
You're on mute, by the way.
No, it's coming through.
Yeah, it's on Basil's screen coming through. So basically, Lukaku, he came in red hot. I think he scored 5 goals in his first 6 games or something, and then it just dropped off from there. It was after his interview with Sky Sports where he said he wanted to go back to Inter someday, and ultimately that disappointed Chelsea fans, and there was a big rift between him and the fans, and he apologized for it, but then afterwards you can feel that he wasn't quite the same, and then suddenly he had Kai Havertz hitting form, and then he hasn't been the same since. Off the bench, he is like, you want to get something out of him, but his first touch is so poor. We try to whip balls in for him, but then without Reece James has been our main crossover of the ball this season. With him out, he's been out for like 2-3 months, and so Lukaku has been absolutely useless for us, basically. How Chelsea play right now, we play off Kai Havertz, basically. Him and Timo Werner have been a pretty prolific partnership, especially Timo Werner recently, scoring against Real Madrid, scoring against West Ham, scoring against Arsenal. He's off a rich vein of form, so I think he'll start. So my front three for the Everton game would be Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, and Hakim Ziyech coming in for Mason Mount. I think Mason Mount has been decent the past few games, but his creativity has slightly dropped off. When we face deeper blocks, more defensive teams, we need that magician in Hakim Ziyech. His one of a left foot. No one else in our team can do anything that he does. Sticking with that 3-4-3, I'd have Marcus Alonso coming off that absolutely cracking volley against United. He has to stay in the lineup. Midfield 2 would be Jorginho and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I'm dropping Kante for this, as I feel that we'll have a lot more of the ball. And with Kovacic out, we need Loftus-Cheek as that driving midfielder, running through that midfield of yours. And Loftus-Cheek, a 6'3" frame of his, reminiscent of Yaya Toure, I feel, and very skillful on the ball, and just a great midfielder. And also Reece James on the right, man of the match against United. He's been England's, if not the best, second best. And also back three would be Thiago Silva in the middle, Tony Rudiger on the left, and Azpilicueta captaining the side on the right, and Mendy in goal.
So that's a slight variation on the side that played United.
Yes.
And do you think that Chelsea have no problem in playing these two games in 3 days? Because Everton would have a very big problem. They don't have the same strength and depth, Everton, as Chelsea. So I think there are rotational options that you have, like Loftus-Cheek. We just wouldn't have anyone of that class to really bring in. But Chelsea, do you think they'll be very comfortable, or do you think that that they might struggle?
I think we'll have a lot of the ball. We tend to have quite a lot of the ball, but we just don't know what to do with it. We pass the wings, switch play, try to cross and pray. I feel like Chelsea. Sorry.
Who do you see as the biggest threat? Looking at this from a Chelsea point of view, in the Everton side, who are you looking out as the threat?
In the Everton side, Anthony Gordon. I watched him play against Man City when you guys watched 1-0. He's absolutely class. Most energetic player from your side, just bombarding down that wing. But hopefully, Reece James can keep in quiet. And also, I rate Alan, but then he's quite a solid midfielder for you guys. The Courier as well, absolute tank, and
they're not massively threatening. They're more defensive players. Decore obviously it is box to box, but players that are sitting there are not going to harm you. I think you're right about Gordon. I think he was absolutely outstanding against Liverpool, and he's really been like that. He's almost like this season, Basil. It's been a bit of a coming of age for Gordon.
It has, but I mean, the team's played so poor. It's allowed him to kind of shine amongst that. But I think he has been the most consistent player. And to pin that on 21-year-old, it's hard to say that at the end of the season, isn't it? That he's the only one who, week on week, goes out and tries his best and runs his hardest and really wants to win. We shouldn't be saying that, but I mean, he's a real talent. He needs to work on his kind of end product, but I think that's a team thing as well, and I think that's not helped by having fullbacks who can't overlap and cross the ball, and it leaves him often having to beat two men before he can put the cross in. So I think these things will come, but he's a breath of fresh air, isn't he?
Definitely. It was outstanding against Liverpool, and there's been much made of the penalty that wasn't. Lots of people thinking that there's something wrong with the VAR checking system at Anfield. I don't think even Liverpool have had a VAR decision. But it's always a bit painful when we come off a derby defeat, and getting on to the next game is usually the most important thing after that. This derby defeat didn't feel, in my opinion, quite as painful as some of them in the past, because the performance was good, Basil. And I think that Everton don't lack confidence. Ironically, right now, they seem to be playing better football than they were doing 10, 15 games ago. Worse this season. I mean, a lot, obviously, we're really upset, worried about the situation. But given the fact that it's not match day today, and there's a bit of time to reflect on what's going on at the moment in between games, where do you think it's gone wrong, and why do you think that we've ended up getting so sucked into this relegation battle? And why has it taken the actual relegation to be a reality and probability for Everton to start playing what is now probably the better football? Because I've seen them in the last few games, and actually they've not been bad compared to some of the earlier games in this calendar year. At least January, February, Everton were diabolical. Let's put it at best. But March, April, actually Everton are looking like they're turning the corner. And if it wasn't for Burnley picking up points, you would think that they have a strong chance of survival. Why has it gone so pear-shaped? And where do you see the recovery coming from?
It's a huge topic, isn't it? And I'm sure end of season it'll get broken down properly. But I mean, you've got to think about, we've had the two managers, haven't we? We've had Benitez, who got off to a flyer, and then it just started to drop off. And I don't want to use the word, but injuries, they just start to pierce through the holes in the side. And, with not having huge quality and depth, we've got quite a big squad, but it's not quality squad. It's weak on the bench, or at least it was at the start of the year. Once we get a couple of injuries, it's just not the same. You're bringing in Kenny at right back if you've got Coleman out, and Coleman's past his best. You're bringing in, I don't know, Gomez, who can't cut it if you've got a midfielder out. It's just a complete drop off, and I think that really hit us. And then we got into a very negative spiral. Frank's picked it up. He wanted to play better football. I think he's got a few things wrong. I think we needed to do the Liverpool style performance more away from home the last 6 weeks. And I think we've lost the chance to pick up points. I mean, you're going to look back at the end of the season, if we go down and think, Norwich away, how did we let that slip? Watford at home, we let that slip. Some really poor.
Burnley away.
Burnley away is the worst one. I mean, I said before the game it was a must not lose, not a must win. And that's really come to the light now, because there's a 6-point swing on that. That could probably cost us, staying up, that one result. So we've lost too many games where we could have fought for it and got a point out of it. And it seems to me now it's a little bit too little too late. It's out of our hands, really. We've got more games than Burnley, I think. So technically
we've got 6 games.
I think it's in our hands at the moment if you look at the table. But
in realistic terms,
we're not going to suddenly start knocking out goals and winning every game. We're just not. Look at the form from Frank talked about it 10 games ago. We've still got 15 games left. Judge me, I've still got 35 points to play for or whatever, but time's ticking, and now it's like, well, now you've got 6 games left, and you've still got a few points to play for, but you've only just got 3 or 4, 5, 6 points from the last 6 games. What on that form, we're down. So it's going to have to be some sort of spirited miracle to start putting points on the board, starting with Sunday.
Yeah, really good. Some thoughts there, and obviously Luca Dean leaving as well. The
creativity has been completely lacking since Dean and the man we can't mention, and the other one was forced out by Rafa. Rafa's just torn through the club, and it's interesting. We've had Chelsea's managers recently, Ancelotti, Benitez, and now Lampard.
Just before we wrap up, just a couple of big fixtures. Obviously, I think it's season ticket deadline renewal day as well, Basil. A couple of fixtures that we're going to point out. We've got the Watford-Burnley game at 3:00 on Saturday. So that game has taken on added significance. Obviously, Watford can still mathematically stay up. Whether they will or not, that remains to be seen. I think really what we're looking for really potentially is Watford to win there, take points from Burnley. And then obviously the Leeds Man City is a no-brainer as far as we're concerned, and that we need a big City swing. For obvious reasons, goal differences and title challenges with neighbours and all sorts of other things that we won't get into politically. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and we hope to welcome you again. Enjoy the game. Are you going on Sunday?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, enjoy the game on Sunday. Basil, you will as well. And we'll be reacting live straight after the final whistle with our raw, candid videos where we walk out of the park end with a wobbly camera, either sulking or relieved with post 90-minute goals. But you'll see that sort of reaction only on this channel. Follow Everton straight following the big match on Sunday. It's Everton against Chelsea. You've been watching Follow Everton. I'm Stevie, and this is our live preview of the match. We welcome you to like and subscribe. We have over 1,000 subscribers now, so keep pushing the channel out, and we'll see you on the other side of the match on Sunday. Goodbye for now.